Hi. Hello, everyone. Welcome. It is Thursday night, Generational Change. I'm Jen.
I'm Peter. And
welcome
to the live show where we're going to have to do a show for an hour without a guest.
Well, we've done it. We've had to do whole shows without guests. It's not a problem. I just can't be here by myself because I don't want to just sit here and talk to the camera. Yeah, guys, Lee's going to be on at 8. He's coming on in the second part of the show, which is fine. We're accommodating. And we figured it was still better to start on time. So there's that.
Yes.
Right? Is that like that was, I gave you the option. I said we could start a little bit later. We could start early. So we're just going to go ahead and get into all of the nonsense.
Well, you want to know what Jen feels like when she's talking by herself? This is what happens. That's what goes through her head.
It's not good. You love that graphic. It's so funny.
Thanks for telling me that you went on a show earlier today.
Oh, I totally forgot. Well, did you know it? Well, it was supposed to be yesterday. And then yesterday morning, I woke up because Jamal is in Albania, that he had to cancel. And so then he asked if I could do today. And it just happened like the night before, like it just sort of came up. And it's not like I think you care.
Oh, I would always like to promote it if I could.
Okay. Well, anyway, so I was on with Jamal Thomas this morning on his live. So you guys can go back and check that out. I was in rare form as well. Did you watch it?
No, I haven't watched it. But I seen like a minute of it and I knew that it was on, but.
Oh yeah, no, I was in rare form.
Yeah, and the crowd certainly seemed to like it. So I guess that's the most important.
Some of them. Then there was someone in there that called me insufferable, which I kind of find funny.
Well, you can't please everybody. I mean, that's part of what we do.
But I think we got a couple of new subscribers.
Yes, well, new subscribers are good, and anybody who wants to contribute to our cause is always welcome.
Yes.
That's part of the thing about doing any type of, political commentary. Man, I got like a fur ball in my throat. There's always going to be people that don't agree. It's that simple.
Yeah, that's what's happening. Tony D, you've met Lee? Yeah, Lee is awesome.
We could always look like
Why
him,
are we? This is so funny to me.
We could always look like him, Jen. We could always look like him. That is a really terrible picture. That's not what I look like. I don't look that fat. Well, I still think that's part and parcel why he was a big supporter of Randy Fine. Randy Fine made him look thin.
Oh, Randy Fine does make him look thin.
He did.
I think that meme that we saw, guys, I don't know who put it out, but there was a meme. So for anybody who doesn't know, we just had a special election here in Florida's 6th district to fill Matt or whatever, Waltz's seat, whatever. Right. And so Randy Fine, who won that seat, is a complete piece of shit from the Florida State House and whatever. And he's a little bit rotund. And he's a ridiculous Zionist and he's anti-choice and he's really quite gross. But so somebody put out a meme and it's a picture. It's a picture of just his headshot on the left. It says Israel. And then it's a picture of his full body on the right. And it says Greater Israel. And it's just
before and way before. It's true.
Yeah. I mean, and I do not like mocking people based on physicality, but he is really a piece of shit. Like seriously. So this is someone who does not support women's right to choose. This is someone who does not support cannabis legalization. This is someone who it really is extremely Islamophobic hateful. I can't call it Islamophobic anymore. They're not scared of them. They just hate them.
Well,
same as homophobes. They're not scared of them. They just hate them. Why do we call them phobic? There are people that really are scared of things,
Well, they are.
Yes, there are legitimate phobias. But when you say something like Islamic, he's not scared of Muslims.
But the
He
thing I
just
think
doesn't like brown people.
the thing that I think we also have to be conscious of, which is one of the bigger problems that we face on a regular basis when it comes to splitting hairs when anyone is debating whether or not the disparagement of the state of Israel has anything to do with anti-Semitism. I think it is crucial on our part to be as distinct as we can, knowing that there is a difference. But there are people that are out there that have a habit of making people like in Jen's position having to speak up and also seep through those that are using the state of Israel as a weapon.
I'm sorry, Henry. The chat. Homophone.
Homophone.
It's funny. Sorry. Thank you for that, Henry. That's funny.
Yeah, I'm all kinds of fucked up with my working, now. So, but knock on wood, I don't think I'm sick. Thank God.
I have a little funk today. That's interesting that you say that. I have started feeling the funky today.
Yeah, but I've been traveling, so I need to catch up on my vitamin C and make sure that that's all up to speed.
Yeah, this is one of those times when I'm happy you're not here. Like, I don't need you bringing your travel airplane funk bacteria and virus into the studio.
Jen, you'll never have to worry about that ever happening again. The odds of me being in that studio again anytime soon is probably long and wide, but maybe someday. And if it is, it will not be when I am sick. So
how do you say that? You're here, it seems like every other month.
Not that often, but I'm never there in terms of a time coordination when I'm able to actually get into the studio. So that's a whole
true. All right.
But guys, there is a hell of a lot of things that we could talk about today. There's a hell of a lot of places that we can start off. So let's start off with the best possible person.
I was going to say, I see someone I really like down there.
Oh, you do? Yes.
Oh, you're being facetious.
Oh, well, yeah.
Because I see something with James Lee.
We could start with James. We could
whatever you want. No. I just like that's the only person I see that I kind of like down there.
Well, if we're going to talk about Mr. Poole, which we can talk about, there was a great video that our friend Kim Iverson put out, tying in exactly how he's connected to the Mossad potentially. Gotta love these things. It's as I've often said, and this is the biggest reason why Gaza is suffering through a genocide right now. It's all about money and power. There is no secret sauce. There is countless amounts of financial resources on Gaza soil, including natural gas, and then, of course, real estate opportunity. And that's what this is all about, always. Religion is just used as a crutch. It's used as a disguise from the real truth about why these things are done. And so who better to pose the truth to the face of the most loathsome representative in Congress, in my opinion anyway, than our good friend Medea Benjamin over at CodePink.
This woman just held a press conference about the victims of communism, but we're trying to ask her about Israel's genocide in Gaza and the victims there, and she doesn't seem to want to answer that.
No, she has a perpetual habit of always pretending that she's talking to somebody else. Somebody else is acknowledging her and she doesn't have time, but she hears every single word that people are saying. Now, what's even more interesting, which I did not see the footage of, and maybe we will see it at some point, Congressman Wasserman Schultz gave a speech on the Hill today about the dangers of communism.
They're really getting desperate in the Democratic Party. They're scrambling so hard with everybody taking different strategies, trying to figure out what to do. But here's the thing. This is a complete side note, but if people don't recall, Debbie Wasserman Schultz actually had sicked the Capitol Police on Medea Benjamin for assault a few years back when Debbie was supporting regime change in Venezuela and standing there with Juan Guaido or who was she with? What rep? I don't know. Whichever representative. Diaz.
Oh, and she was also, remember, she went to the Venezuelan border with.
Well, right. So point being, okay, this woman called the Capitol Police on Medea Benjamin, claiming she assaulted her. Now, here's why I'm pointing this out now, because this is very interesting. If you guys don't know, Debbie's really short. Like Debbie's she's short.
I've been in Debbie's presence enough times where I literally have to look down at her.
Correct. She's very short. And if you notice the angle of this phone, which I believe is being held by Medea Benjamin, you can tell that Medea is actually smaller than Debbie. I'm just thinking, like, it's just so funny to me that we're sitting here watching it, and I'm thinking, and she's the one who called the police and said Medea assaulted her.
Listen,
And again, Debbie's little, so how we know Medea's teeny because we know her, but this is ridiculous.
When I've taken when I've taken a couple of photos of Jen with Medea, Jen looks like a gentle giant next to me.
Well, yeah. I mean, definitely.
Well, you're also tall to begin with, so it's like
I'm not that. I mean, I'm tall, but these people are actually particularly petite. Well, I'll call Medea petite. I won't call Debbie petite.
Very often in history, as we've seen with men in particular, you know, the whole Napoleon complex and whatnot, you know, you always have to be mindful of short men when they ascertain a certain level of power. Well, perhaps the same can be true of certain very small women. And Debbie maybe, well, she's only short in height. We'll leave it at that.
I can't even fathom. She loathes Medea Benjamin with the passion of like 1,000 burning suns. But what's so funny is she's so bad at hiding how disgusted she is. She thinks that she's ignoring her. She's pretending like she can't hear her. She hears every single word. Like, it's so good.
And kudos to Debbie for finally crossing that $1 million mark from the Israel lobby. You worked really hard to get to 7 figures, and you finally did it, and you're still going.
Oh, look at her. She's crossed over.
Maybe.
Oh, wow. She's crossed over. Nice.
Let's keep going.
What about your hypocrisy of not speaking out against Israel's genocide? Congresswoman, do you have anything to say about what the UN came out with? 100 children every day being killed or wounded by Israeli bombs. Do you have any?
Could you stand in front of this little thing for me,
She's
please?
very worried about Medea. Medea is very threatening in her pink shirt. You know what I mean? She's very threatening. She's probably has on she's probably wearing like her keffiyeh scarf. So, you know, Debbie is horrified by that. But all right, continue.
Concern over the victims of Israel's genocide. Congresswoman, do you have any concern about the children? Do you see the pictures? Did you see the journalist being burned alive in his tent? A journalist tent? Did you see the New York Times video of the 15 medical rescue workers who were shot and killed and then thrown into a mass grave? You're talking about victims. Do you have any concern for the victims of Israel's genocide? Or is it AIPAC money that doesn't allow you to have a heart for the children or the 200 journalists who've been killed? You have absolutely nothing to say because AIPAC controls you so much, or because your love for Israel blinds you to what's happening? You know, I'm Jewish too. It's not an excuse for supporting genocide. In fact, it's the Jews who have to speak out more because we said never again. And it's happening right now. And you are supporting it. Shame on you. History will show that you have no morals.
I hope it's a lot worse than that. I think that we will see.
I was right about the angle of the camera, though, right? Like, you could tell how ridiculous now this is.
Her face looks like it's going to melt.
Like how much smaller Medea is next to Debbie. Just, it's so silly.
Sorry, I can't help it. I consider her to be as emblematic of all of the problems that exist in politics. She just represents the worst of everything.
The nerve on her, the way she just walks, like she doesn't have to be accountable to like actual people.
Well, the problem that she still has, you just know that she's not just a narcissist, but she really is a sociopath, because in her mind, she still fancies herself as an extremely important person, which is complete narcissistic personality disorder. And then you factor in the sociopathic component to her personality, which is everything is a means to an end. No matter how many people have to suffer under my superiority complex, it's all a means to an end. She's a very small person, and she knows that she's a small person. Remember, there's 2 types of narcissists. We've covered this on the show. We won't name any names, but there's the overt narcissist, and then there's the covert narcissist. She's a covert narcissist. She falls under the category of a person.
I don't think she's that covert. She basically has said, I'm Debbie Wasserman Schultz. I always get what I want.
Yes, I'm Debbie Wasserman
Schultz. There's nothing covert about that.
Yes, I would say that that is true. Okay, so you're right. She actually would fall under
She
the
has
category.
zero FTFs. She really thinks that like she's showing Medea. She knows exactly who Medea is. She's acting like she doesn't. It's so stupid. And Debbie is just so representative of why electoral politics is just a giant cesspool slush fund for oligarchs.
And
That's all.
Debbie has,
There's no there there.
and she's never deviated. Her disposition has always been the same. She will never address any of these people ever. It's always, yeah, I know you're there. I don't care.
Can I also say, like, how embarrassing and how cowardly? So anybody that would fancy themselves a representative, a public servant, somebody that's supposed to actually be fighting for things that they believe in and care about, you wouldn't act like that. You would be able to defend your position because you would have substance to why you're doing it, even if it was in opposition to what someone was talking with you about. There are always going to be people that disagree with your stance. But the fact that you can't even address it and say anything because you have nothing to say because you're just a complete corporate whore, that's the problem. That's how you know that none of these people are actually interested in representing anybody but themselves. That it's so obvious. She wouldn't even stop. It's like, that is crazy to me. How dare her? She is our employee.
Well, not only that,
like, it's so absurd.
But also keep in mind, and I don't know how many people necessarily know this, but I believe that Debbie at one time was Medea's representative. But it doesn't matter. They don't care. This is, if you're going to show the actual problem, then show the actual problem. And Debbie, in so many ways, represents the very worst of it. Now, there's a very interesting tie-in. And as I've said, Debbie covers a hell of a lot of ground when we talk about the ineptitude and the downright depravity that comes with being a congressional representative. Colin, if you will, would you please cue up a tweet from none other than Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez?
I can only imagine.
Put out a very
I can only imagine.
I think is actually very poignant in this particular moment. So Alex actually puts out a message saying any member of Congress who purchased stocks in the last 48 hours should probably disclose that now. I've been hearing some interesting chatter on the floor. Disclosure deadline is May 15th. We're about to learn a few things. It's time to ban insider trading in Congress. This is in response to whatever you would consider Trump's methodology when it comes to the tariff catastrophe, because on the one hand, he's saying we're going to have these tariffs. Now it's on a 90-day hold, but except for China, China now has to pay for it. And the understanding is NASDAQ call volume spiked minutes before the 90-day tariff pause was announced. Not a good look at all. Why? Because that's what you call a pump and dump scheme when it comes to stock trading. I do not do stock trading. I actually refuse to do it. I think it's a complete scam. I've always felt that way because you're never in control of it. I only invest in hard assets, things that you could actually touch, feel, gold, real estate, etc. But stocks, it's just made up shit. Guys can decide. Ben Bernanke, head of the Fed, once said, now we just put numbers in on the computer screen and we make up numbers. When you start hearing things like that, how can you ever trust this system? And who amongst anyone on Capitol Hill is as guilty as Debbie Wasserman Schultz when it comes to insider trading? It's a commodity for her. She was the top Democratic Party trader in 2 of the last 3 congressional terms. Like, you can't make this shit up anymore. And at what point do we start saying we're going to cut the fat?
And the tools down here, like her people, they love her. They love her. And here's the best part. Like when I went to the thing in Hollywood, the hands off that was in Hollywood, there were so many people that were total Debbie people with their hands off of our social security sign and hands off of this. And we hate Trump and, get rid of Musk and all this stuff. And they totally support Debbie. And it's so, it's very rich to me. There's a very rich irony there.
We've had very strong opinions about Alex and how she's conducted herself. There's a lot of things that I don't like, but you know what? You give credit where credit is due.
Well, except for this to me isn't something that's really worthy of credit. It should just be the law and common sense. That's like coming up and saying, you know what? People shouldn't steal. And would we give her credit for saying that too? I don't think so. Well, I actually don't give her credit for shit. I think that she's a coward. And I think that she pipes in whenever it is only safe and politically fruitful for her to do so. That's a coward. So no, I don't give her props. I don't give a shit that she calls out insider trading, because the only reason she doesn't do it is because she wasn't doing it before. Otherwise, she wouldn't want to be stopped doing it now. So she didn't start, but she doesn't have a portfolio. So, and it's only a matter of her having a stern talking to by someone before she'll fall in line anyway.
Well,
so,
it's entirely fair to surmise that because Alex has the means of making money outside of politics, that it isn't so much of a pressure for her to have to potentially make additional money, if that's even a reasonable excuse, which it's not. But nevertheless, she doesn't do insider trading. So there is some validity to her saying we need to ban stock trading. But I would say to Alex, that's all well and good. But until you actually start calling out your own people by name, no one's going to care. You need to call out Debbie Wasserman Schultz. You need to call out Nancy Pelosi.
That's because for her, it's just theater. She's just performing. And that's why I don't like to even cover it. That's why, because I don't care. I think it's silly. I think that is every bit as performative as Cory Big Pharma Booker standing there, going on for 25 hours. All of these things are completely performative right now. All of it. The Democrats are scrambling. They have nowhere to go.
And speaking of Cory Booker, apparently some people got into a big town hall that he was hosting the other day, and they called him out about Israel, and they got thrown out of his town hall.
Of course they did.
So, of course, he just proves once again that he's just a colossal hypocrite like the rest of them, and he is a particularly big hypocrite. He gets by because people like him, because he's a nice guy.
But, and that's the same thing like with probably why people promote certain people. I am so over that now. I don't care if people are nice. I don't care.
No.
I don't care if Alex does the bare minimum from time to time. It's irrelevant.
In a way, that's what makes it worse, because everyone knows that Debbie Wasserman Schultz is the C word. So they don't have to question whether they would ever find anything endearing about her. Yes, she does have her sycophants, the classic boomer, wealthy white liberal that lives in South Florida. Yes, that is her demographic.
They want her hands off. They want their hands off of Social Security, but they don't mind her hands stealing the money from the top. Like it's.
Guys, I was in a what I wouldn't even call it a town hall. I was in one of those Dem sycophant meetings with Wasserman Schultz. I want to say like probably 6-7 years ago, something like that. And she shows up. Of course, she shows up late, and of course, she leaves early because that's how she rolls. And so she comes in and she starts making her little speech to the Yentas and the loyal party sycophants that are there, talking about we're working on this bill right now that's going to include seniors have eyes. So we're going to add a little clause to the healthcare system where if you're over the age of 65, we're going to give you a price reduction on your ability to get your eyes checked. And I'm listening to this and I'm thinking. And
she's going to throw in some optometry to the seniors. How nice of her.
And yet there are people that eat this up. But I will tell you guys, and I know this, Debbie, if there was no consequences to it, she would have dealt with Medea a long time ago. If she was still the head of the DNC, I would have been looking over both shoulders every day if I was Medea.
Nah, Medea's pissed off some really higher up people than Debbie Wasserman Schultz, to be honest with you.
Well, now, yes, I would definitely.
Okay. Agree. She's pissed off people globally. So she's pissed off people across the globe, way more powerful than Debbie.
When we are asking ourselves exactly why is it that we see all the things that happen today when it sort of evolves into this whole, how did we get here with Trump? Why is Trump so brazen about this? The reason he is able to say the things that he says, and I'm going to play this clip in a second, you guys will understand, is because they have neglected all of this criminal behavior forever. It's only because he's so bombastic about it and he doesn't hide it that everyone is like, oh my God, can you believe he said it? No, they are all doing it. He just doesn't care. Well, they're all guilty, so I could do it too. So this is Trump. And this is a follow-up from what Alex was talking about, how we need to end insider trading. Why? Because it's in everybody's faces now and no one has any faith in the system anymore. That's why Trump can say things like this.
This is Charles Schwab. It's not just a company, it's actually an individual. And he made $2.5 billion today, and he made $900 million.
That's really good. You did a really great job. These incredible people, you know why they made that money? Because I allowed them to make it. It was really great job. And everyone who throws their arms up in the air and says, Trump this, Trump that, remember, it's like anything. It doesn't just come from nowhere. Trump is not an anomaly to the system. Trump is the system at its final destination, I guess you'd say, Jen.
Oh, it's just for me, I have to laugh. I have to laugh. This is just, I'm enjoying it, actually. I'm enjoying it. I know
Well,
it's sick. It's in a sick way, but it's like, it's so ridiculous at this point that it's just, I have to laugh.
because the cat is never going back in the bag. That's what so many of them don't understand. And it's much like you said about the Democratic Party. They will never fight their way out of this, even in lieu of everything that's going on now. Because as I said,
They
Trump,
are this. How are they any different?
so when people are looking around asking themselves, why are the Democrats allowing the Republicans to do this, etc.? Why are they allowing Trump to do that, etc.? Remember,
Such an enigma.
they only have one strategy. They are hoping and praying against all odds that the Republicans sink so low that the Democrats will just win by default.
I don't even think that much. I think that they just don't care at all. It doesn't matter to them. They win either way, because there will still be people that will come out and just keep putting money into their coffers. And it has nothing to do with if they can win a race or not. Nothing. They don't care if they can win races. They just care if they can fundraise. That's it. The Democratic Party is a slush fund for the WCCC. And people who don't know that, for me, that's white collar campaign carnies. That's the consultant class. And these campaigns exist just to keep that funded and to keep people like Debbie Wasserman Schultz in power so that they could keep the whole system. Like it's a giant circle jerk. But they don't exist with a mission. They don't have a plan because they don't give a shit. They are literally just there to be faux resistance. It is so silly. And to me, it's just, I have to laugh that there's anybody that falls for it, but they do. They eat this shit up.
Well, I just don't know how anyone thinks that there is any faith in a system that look, it's one thing if you truly are going into it with the intention of trying to facilitate a massive change within the system, but no one ever does that, ever. And that's why, when we spoke with Bree, although I should say at the point where Jen was speaking with Bree, because I was not a part of the conversation when
that wasn't my doing. You say it like I excluded you.
No, not at all. But at the time when you were talking about Jamal and how if we ever needed to question whether the decision to try and defend or salvage this notion that if we elect people into positions of power that are not willing to fight, truly willing to fight, then there is no, it's all false pretenses, and it's a failed exercise. So you have to find another way. Yeah. Anyone who is attempting to do this now, who is attempting to, let's say, primary a sitting incumbent and get to Congress, what are you hoping to accomplish? What do you think you're going to do? We've already
seen it out long enough to get their pension, I guess, like everyone else.
Maybe. Oh. You guys, anybody who's been here a long time, Sable Minor, Ronwell, Kat Negrita, Travers, you guys know that we've had Jasmine Crockett on the show multiple times. She is a prime example of somebody we've actually spoken to and saw the shift. And it happened in real time, and it happened fast. And for what purpose? Well,
we've seen it with someone else too.
Mm-hmm. And we've seen it with people.
We've seen it with actually quite a few people, because now I'm really thinking about it. We could even go up the state a little bit, and we've seen it.
Oh, people get very tempted. That's why I've often said, if you guys want to know who you can actually trust in politics, the only people you can truly trust are people that are independently successful. Don't even have to be wealthy, but have to be independently successful outside of politics. They have to have a career.
Yeah, that can't be their career. If they're a career politician, that's all they care about doing. No, they're not there on a mission. They're not there for a calling. That's just their job. They literally just work there.
Well, think about it. I often use Alex as a reference point, because there's a person who had a job that wasn't paying, it wasn't peanuts, but she wasn't making a substantial income.
That she was the owner of that bar, right?
Oh, she was? Okay, then I take that back. She's a bad example.
Yeah, they covered that part up. Ask Zainab. She told me the whole story. Look, can we not? Let's just not. That whole thing.
But a better example would be Jamal Bowman. Here's a guy that was a high school principal. He may have been making, $75,000, $80,000 a year, which is highly possible. But in New York City, how good is that really? Then you almost 2.5x his income. Then you give him full benefits. Then you give him, top shelf universal health care. You give him inside information about economic opportunities. Very few people are going to scoff at that and say, no, I'm totally clean. I'm not going to succumb to this pressure.
But here's the thing. I wouldn't even care if they sort of succumbed in terms of liking the life, if they were doing their jobs. So let's say he went there and fought like hell, like he should have, like he could have, instead of goofing off, pulling fire alarms and like falling in line. Okay. Let's say that. Let's say he actually went there and did that. Then yeah, that would be productive. But he didn't do that. I would urge everyone to go watch Bree's interview with Jamal, because it really does show you his complete lack. He is so uninspired. He has no accountability. He basically blamed everybody and Jimmy Dore for what went wrong. And then there's somehow a suggestion like people should elect him back in. For what? To go sit there. So exactly why? Because you like the higher paycheck? Because I didn't see you fighting for shit.
And
I'm just saying.
And until we deal with the real elephant in the room, which is the Israel lobby, we will get nowhere, because there's different ways of buying people off. And speaking of content creators that we really like, big kudos and shout out to Kim Iverson, who Jen was recently on with, and did an excellent job, factually speaking, because Kim does journalism.
Kim does the research. She really does, guys. She puts in like tons of hours of research.
As I pointed out in the post that I put out today on Instagram and YouTube, we will forever be appreciative that Tim Pool had Jen on his show. It was an experience, going out to his compound and meeting his crew and all that. But the fact of the matter is, the guy figured out a mousetrap that made him a wealthy man. And he's not going to allow that to be compromised in any way. And that will include giving up his integrity, which he has done more than one occasion or two, especially if you're given the opportunity to interview the president of the United States, if you're given the opportunity to basically have a platform that garners anywhere from 50 to 60,000 live stream viewers at a time, to a point in which he once had Kanye West and Milos and Alex Jones. I mean, there was points where he had 200,000 live viewers at one time. You know what kind of money that is, guys? I don't think you understand how serious this is. So it's not entirely surprising that when the one story comes out that Tim, along with Benny Johnson and Dave Rubin, who really hates Jen with a passion of 1,000.
I don't even know who's Dave Rubin. Like, who is that?
You don't want to know. He's
okay.
just.
But he hates me.
Oh, he hates you.
That's so funny. He doesn't even I don't even know who he is.
He really hates you because he's a sellout. He's a Shapiro butt buddy. He sold out for the Israel lobby.
Oh, is he the guy that's like a self-loathing gay man?
Yes, that's him.
Oh, okay. That's okay. I think I know. But and he hates me. Well, you mean he hates your posts? He doesn't know me. He's never probably seen me.
No, because when it comes to the issue of Israel, he has specifically called you out on his show and on social media for being a self-loathing Jew. Yeah, you're a self-loathing Jew, Jen. And you're a dumbass. Don't forget that as well.
Well, I've been told in this thing I'm dumb as a box of rocks, but he said my name on his show.
Oh, he don't like you one bit, Jen.
That's so cool. All right. Anyway, continue.
But Kim Iverson decided to do a deep dive. And again, we've addressed it before. Remember, there was a Russian-based conglomerate that spent $100,000 a month or gave $100,000 a month in compensation to the substantially large conservative platforms. Yes, Tim Pool, you do run a conservative platform. You may claim you're not a conservative, but your audience definitely is very pro-Trump, very pro-conservative. No two ways about it. And so that channel got a lot of traction. So did Benny Johnson's, and so did Dave Rubin's. And these guys got a lot of money. Do you think that was the end of the story? Of course not. And here's Kim Iverson breaking it down when it came to the issue of Israel.
So this should alarm you, because this wasn't just a conversation. It was a controlled environment curated by a foreign government with the explicit purpose of shaping how you, the audience, see the world. And the people who agreed to this meeting weren't diplomats. They weren't intelligence analysts. They weren't even traditional journalists. They were independent journalists and influencers, the people you trust because you believe they aren't controlled. And now they are. So what is the Chatham House rule? So let's pause and explain exactly what this rule is, because the devil is in the details and most people have never even heard of it. So the Chatham House rule was created in 1927 by the Royal Institute of International Affairs in London, aka the Chatham House. It was designed to encourage open, honest dialogue during times of war or diplomacy or instability. So here's the official definition. When a meeting or part thereof is held under the Chatham House rule, participants are free to use the information received, but neither the identity nor the affiliation of the speakers nor that of any other participant may be revealed. So let's break that down into plain English. You can repeat what was said, but you can't say who said it or where they work or where they're from or that they were even in the room. So the idea was that people could speak honestly without getting fired or starting a war or causing a scandal. Now that makes sense for high stakes diplomacy, like two countries trying to stop a war without alarming their citizens. But here's the catch. This wasn't a peace summit. This was a foreign government talking to YouTubers behind closed doors. That's not diplomacy. That's message control. So here's the hard truth. The Chatham House rule was never meant to be used by journalists or commentators or anyone whose whole brand is, I tell you what the establishment won't. Because the second someone in media agrees to keep a source secret, not for safety, but for strategy, they stop being a watchdog and they become a guard dog.
I'm sorry. Is she saying that Tim Pool suggested that the Chatham House rules apply to him?
Not only that, but apparently, like I said, the talking point that he started going with when it came to the issue of Israel and what was going on in Gaza is people are not really against Israel. It's a bunch of bot farms based in Qatar that are putting this out there, and people are just going along with it because they simply don't understand. How in the hell can you ever square this circle knowing that, and I believe this is part of the clip, where Tim admits that he did.
All right, so let's get to that part. Like, this is kind of like long drawn out explanation of Chatham House rules.
And that's exactly what happened here. Now, according to reporting from the Jewish Insider, which, by the way, Tim Pool called fake news while also admitting it was mostly accurate, this closed-door meeting happened at Blair House, which is the official guest house of the U.S. president, right across from the White House. So who was in the room? On the influencer side, you have Tim Pool, prominent YouTuber, Dave Rubin, also a prominent YouTuber, former press secretary Sean Spicer, editor-in-chief of The Federalist Molly Hemingway, Bethany and Seth Mandel, who both write for the New York Post and Washington Examiner.
Okay. Bethany and Seth Mandel are also two Zionist scumsuckers who live in Florida, and they have.
Wait, those are Mandels from down here? Because I know Mandels here and New York.
Bethany wrote an article about you in her. I think it was in Haaretz, if I'm not mistaken.
She wrote about me?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
This is the best. Okay, continue.
Mommy blogger Jessica Krause, and host of Newsmax, David J. Harris Jr. And on the Israeli side, you have Netanyahu himself, his top diplomatic advisor, and the Israeli ambassador to the U.S. No cameras, no transcripts, just a government, a message, and a room full of people who control what millions of Americans see online. So what was the topic? Well, the goal was to address the growing anti-Israel backlash in right-wing media, especially among pro-Trump populist and Gen Z influencers who are watching footage from Gaza and beginning to question everything.
And that is the crux of the entire conversation.
So basically, now so Netanyahu's just getting little people on his team, little soldiers like Tim Pool, to go push out the propaganda narrative because we can't have proven.
I mean, especially somebody like Dave Rubin, especially somebody like, listen, we haven't even gotten to Ben Shapiro, who's the most guilty party of them all. And obviously Tim Pool. If you've proven time and again that you're a corporate whore, then who cares? And we have the authority to say this. You know why? Because we do have friends in conservative media. We do talk to them, and they are good people. They've been on our show. We've been on theirs. Tim Pool, Dave Rubin, and especially Ben Shapiro are not conservative commentators. They are corporate whores that have no social or political or even economic standing because they don't stand for anything. They stand for their corporate special interest, which is why, as smart as Ben Shapiro tries to make himself out to be, this is a guy who, keep in mind, just a couple of weeks ago suggested that talking about the Kennedy assassination is not worth talking about anymore because it's not important.
Because it happened so long ago.
Could you be more guilty? Could you try to prove that you know that the Mossad was involved in Kennedy's assassination? I don't know. Keep trying because you're really good at it, pal. So let's finish this out.
So according to multiple attendees, including Tim, he raised the possibility that Qatar might be manipulating social media algorithms to push anti-Semitic or anti-Israel content. Let's watch what he says about that.
I said there has been a report released from pro-Israel sources alleging Qatar is funding bots and operations to promote anti-Israel content. Is there any evidence that's true? And he said, I don't know. It's possible. That's what happened. I did not say they actually were doing that because I don't know that they're actually doing it. However, I did, to a variety of people, express what I've expressed on this show, that there are clearly bots that are anti-Israel and anti-Semitic. That is not to say that people who are critical of Israel don't exist or that no one is critical of Israel. People certainly are.
Okay, so in other words, maybe the outrage isn't real. Maybe it's bots. And Netanyahu's answer was, it's possible, which was just enough to plant the seed in all of these influencers to get the word out there. So think about what just happened. A foreign leader met with a group of influential American voices. They agreed not to say who said what. They left that meeting and started repeating the key ideas without telling their audiences where those ideas came from. That's not independent media. That's PR. That's narrative laundering. It's taking talking points from the top of a foreign power structure and repackaging them as grassroots, authentic thought. This story matters because it strikes at the core of what people believe about alternative media. These guys are rebels. They don't take orders. They don't play the DC game. They're not CNN in a hoodie. But guess what? The moment power invited them in, they showed up. They sat down. They listened. They took notes. And now they're feeding you the exact messages the government wanted them to deliver without telling you where those messages came from.
But that's not the problem is that people are going to just believe it without any evidence. I saw somebody in the chat saying something about what's with the beanie. And I want to tell you something about Tim Pool's beanie. Like, because I remember What?
So this is a big reveal, Jen. Not a lot of people know this. So everybody always has wondered because they never, ever, ever get to see Tim Pool without his beanie on. Well, Jen, why don't you tell people what happened when you were right after we went off the air?
I asked him, I'm like, do you ever take it off? He's like, no. He didn't take it off.
He did.
No, he didn't.
He most certainly took it off for you for like 2 seconds. I remember.
Are you sure?
I most certainly do.
Was he just very balding? Was it just very balding?
So he basically has just like specks of hair on his head.
Right. Okay.
So
Yeah.
like,
Now I'm remembering. That's right. So I asked. Yeah. He did very quickly. Yeah.
But why would you, like, to me, why, he would actually look, I'm not trying to give him any clues here, but if he just like grew out the beard and just shaved the head and just he could pull that look off. Like I think
this is all so beside the point.
So
basically we have very big influencers just falling in line with the Zio state. So it's kind of like same old, really. How is that different? Now that's who they have to pay to get their message out because the mainstream media is tanking with their numbers so badly that they can't rely on CNN and MSNBC anymore. They have to go into the independent media spaces. And God forbid, they can't get a control over TikTok.
Well, think of it this way. Do you think it pays financially for, let's say, and we're gonna hold on the Stop Antisemitism clip with James Lee until Lee gets here. But do you think it's really that much of a stretch to suggest that these conglomerates that, let's say, contribute mightily to CNN, Time Warner, don't feel that Jake Tapper, for example, is a good messenger for the Israel cause, and they feel that somebody like Tim Pool is worth more money? I think it's just as simple as that, really. I
think it's just they're hedging their bets. They do it all. Just like how corporate donors pay for Congress people in both parties. Somebody like Netanyahu is going to go get any support anywhere he can. I mean, this is someone who has to have a special flight path because he can't fly over certain countries for fear that they might have to stop and he would be arrested. So, this is You know, this is not somebody who isn't thinking through things. So he has planned. I mean, this is just basically those are the low hanging fruit. Whoever sat down in a meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu in any serious capacity, as if he wouldn't just be lying as every time he opens his mouth. Anybody who would sit down with him isn't a serious person. You're not a serious person because nothing that he says is true. So the fact that you would even consider repeating anything he says is you're just not serious.
Well, it's a very good point that you bring up, because I read a little bit earlier, you guys may have seen it on social media, but evidently when Netanyahu had to leave the US, he had to change his flight path by over 250 miles in order to avoid flying into airspace where he could have been diverted and arrested. I mean, that's pretty serious shit.
Oh, this is where, I mean, I have a kind of a different theory right now on what he's up to. I really think he's kind of doing like suicide by complete implosion of country. It's almost like he knows he's going down one way or another, because he is, let's be real, regardless of what happens, he's not coming out of this, right? Like whether it's with his own people hating him, that civil unrest, the IDF soldiers coming with PTSD, like in the thousands that isn't being reported, the economy's in the shit, like all of that, right? He's not getting out of this. And so it's almost like, because he's sitting there and has always been provoking this war with Iran. We want to get at Iran. And it's only really been recently that now when you poke at Iran, they're going to poke Israel back. So I think that if we were to attack Iran like he wants us to, they're just going to take out Israel. If we level Iran, they're taking Israel with them. And I think that Netanyahu must know this, because again, I think he's disgusting, but he's not stupid. So he knows that that's possible. So because I can't imagine that he thinks that we're just going to take out Iran and Israel will just continue expanding like nothing happened. He knows better. So, and he knows his time is limited. So I'm starting to think that like he's on a suicide mission. Yes, he's in the bunker with the pill. That's what that's what I think. He's just taking everything down with him, because how do we know this and he doesn't? Of course he does. Well, he knows Iran is capable of leveling Israel.
If you need more proof that Netanyahu is the modern day Hitler, I can assure you that if the walls do close in on him, he will Hitler his way out of this world. He will not be captured. He will not go before a tribunal.
Well, that's what I think. This is even getting worse. Yeah, he's, the only place he'd ever be able to live is here.
Yeah.
He can't go anywhere else.
Could you imagine him moving into Del Boca Vista? He
won't survive here. He wouldn't survive here. And I always say it, nobody's untouchable. Nobody. So,
Just as Michael Corleone said to Tom Hagen in The Godfather Part 2, if history has taught us anything, and it's taught us a lot, it's that you could kill anyone.
I just can't fathom that, given what shit trouble he's in, and he knows there's no way out of this. Like, let's say the whole thing ended tomorrow and they left Gaza alone and they left the West Bank alone and it all ended tomorrow. He's done. And he knows that. Like, there's no exit for him. No. So the longer he can prolong this and keep the circus going, I guess the better. But yeah, I think he's on a suicide mission.
Yeah, I think I don't know what he thinks he's going to accomplish. And based on additional commentary that Kim put on her channel pertaining to Trump, is that Trump is not giving in to Netanyahu's demands about Iran. And it's
good.
Yeah, Trump will push you all the way to the edge. But to me, I still don't see Trump as a war hawk. That's not who he is. Now, is he contributing to our war hawkish behavior? Absolutely. But Trump is an unstable individual in a very unstable time. And when that happens, you don't really know what's to be expected. This is the situation where you could have like a Franz Ferdinand type situation where it could just happen because it happens and explanations will never be given. But I think that bringing the whole conversation full circle, because I we don't like to talk about other content creators unless it's justified. If there is a topic that matters, I don't care about the gossip shit. This is real stuff. This is actual stuff that affects us. And
I just don't think it's surprising in this case.
No, I'm not surprising.
Yeah.
If you thought that Tim and the rest of them were getting paid a lot of money to basically throw their weight behind Putin pertaining to what was going on in Ukraine, imagine how much money he's been offered by the Israel lobby to do this.
Of course.
I mean,
But that's what the Zionists have been doing since the beginning of time. That's why how I got brainwashed is from that's the MO. That's what they do.
And that's
they pay for their messaging because they can't get it otherwise.
And you will always discover that there is never not an angle. There's always a reason that these messages go out the way that they do. And we see it. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. The Democratic Party is just as guilty of this in a much grander scale than a handful of YouTubers. Remember, the Democratic Party kind of gets into their bunker when they want a message to go out there, and they all in unison say the same thing. All of them. It's repeated verbatim. Everybody, talk about Cory Booker.
No, you guys haven't missed Lee. He's coming on at 8. He's going to be here in a little bit.
Yep. Everybody talk about Cory Booker. Cory Booker is a fantastic representative. He's exactly what we need right now. He is going to try something. Is he going to run for president of the United States?
Have at that. Ain't that special? Isn't that special?
Ain't that special? Is that what you like to do? You like to pop off every once in a while? Act like you're a big shot and decide you're going to be a boss?
Oh, good luck to them with that. Again, they have none of those people have a chance of becoming any of those people are going to get their asses handed to them just the same as Kamala did. And it won't matter how much people hate Trump, and they'll hate him by then. It won't matter, though. They're not going to turn to new Coke. Again, we don't need new Coke.
And it's also the same issue that people are facing when they look at Trump in the Oval Office talking to a handful of billionaires and talking about, you totally made a lot of money thanks to what I did with the tariffs. And it was like, oh my God, how could he say such a thing? How could you have allowed this system to employ people like Debbie Wasserman Schultz for the past 3 decades? That's your fault. People like her are how people like Trump end up in power. It has been proven time and again throughout centuries upon centuries of history. This is not new. It's always happened this way. It always does. This is nothing new. And the reason that this moment is so vital is because when you think about the power of the Israel lobby and the pressure, the undue pressure that they put, especially on people that are in the Jewish community that have any type of influence, I can assure you that much like they do with whether it's Tim Pool, whether it's Dave Rubin, or anyone else who's had their pockets lined by the Israel lobby, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, it's all for money and power. There is no secret sauce here. This is not some grand scheme. Whatever the reasoning is.
There's no there.
No, much like JFK's assassination, there's no conspiracy.
There's nothing to see here.
Yeah. It was simply he decided that he was the commander-in-chief. The buck stops with him. And people like Alan Dulles and J. Edgar Hoover decided, no, it doesn't stop with you. It stops with us.
It stops somewhere else, sir.
Yeah.
It's not quite
so
correct.
If we've evolved to that point, who better to talk about these wonderful theories? They're not conspiracies. They're theories yet to be proven.
Kind of like gravity.
He's also one of the most outspoken people, like Jen, in the Jewish community, in lieu of what is happening in Gaza. We appreciate him for that and always will. And if you are not currently subscribed to Unredacted Tonight, make sure you get over there and do that.
It's much better to be unredacted. That's the thing. Unredacted is definitely better because they're going to try to redact everything. That's the whole point. That's that black pen that goes across. I've had to redact. I know. You have to take the thing across the thing.
Lee Camp, get in here. Welcome back to Generational.
Hey, I like the deeper dive on the name of my show. I appreciate it.
Well, it is better to be unredacted, don't you think?
It's better to be unredacted, and it's nice to be completely independent now. So that's cool too.
Okay, so how's it going?
It's going well. I mean, I've been very happy with the results of Unredacted. I mean, the response has been amazing. The problem, of course, as always with everything I've done, is the amount of suppression. I mean, it's the amount of YouTube suppression, and I'm just lucky if platforms don't outright ban me. If I'm just shadow banned, that sounds pretty good nowadays.
That's us. That's been us. I mean, when we first started, within the first few months, I did like a whole thing for Julian Assange, and that pretty much set the tone for my treatment by Google ever since. That was sort of the beginning of our relationship.
Yeah, I mean, I've just been shadow banned or sometimes fully banned. First YouTube channel was banned. My first podcast, Spotify, was banned, and more recently, a year ago, my TikTok was banned.
Because are you a Russian asset? Is that the thing?
So the first two had to do with working at RT, which I haven't been there in 3 years. But the TikTok was literally, I'd been using it for 2 months as posting about the genocide in Gaza, and that was all it took. And unlike most people, because people have shown me screenshots, most people, when they're banned on TikTok, they get a little thing that says you can appeal and perhaps they give you a reason. I got none of that. There was nothing saying I could appeal it at all.
So your life without parole. You're that's it for you.
Yeah, totally.
But when you look around at everything that's going on right now, especially in lieu of what just happened earlier today with, Lee, all the names that just run through my head. But between Tim Pool, Dave Rubin, and the like, we've seen plenty of them. We know the people that are guardians at the gate for the Democratic Party. Bree was on our show on Monday. We had a great conversation with her. She alluded to other content creators that are supposedly in what you would call the populist left, and they're guardians at the gate for the Democratic Party. I think it's just simply they know where the bread is buttered. They know what it takes to make the money, and they're just going to go there. And that's kind of their motivation. Our motivation. Yeah, it's nice to make money, but at the same time, do you have any?
I wouldn't know.
We're trying, Jen.
I'm gonna take your word for that, Peter.
We can tell by the wall that's falling down behind you.
My shack.
Your shack behind you. No, I've seen that. I'm, as I'm sure with you guys, but I'm part of different communities. I'm part of the comedian community. I'm part of the indie media community. And I've seen people in both those communities where it just becomes clear. And some of them I thought actually stood for something. It just becomes clear, like, oh, they're just following maybe not immediately. They might not run to the clicks, but they're going to follow the clicks eventually. They're eventually going to be like, oh, talking about this gets coverage, talking about that doesn't, mentioning climate crisis gets not great clicks and pushback. Don't do that. And I've never been able to do that. I just have found that so repulsive ever since day one. And that goes for comedians as well. Comedians are supposedly the truth tellers of our time, although a lot of them have just become Trump's ass lickers. So they just follow where the clicks are.
Yeah. That is very specifically sad about comedians. And when I see that in that community, to me, it's the same as seeing it with like the journalists, actual journalists. It's very disappointing because if you have purchased yourself the comedy group, is like you purchase yourself the fourth estate to some extent, that's what it seems like in some cases, then nobody is pushing back. Because that's one of those things that, I mean, that's one of the whole points of comedy is political speech. I mean, am I wrong?
Well, I would say there can be comedians that are not political, like many of them I have loved, Stephen Wright or Mitch Hedberg or things like that.
But completely unrelated stuff.
Yeah. But if you're going to be a comedian talking about cultural commentary, talking about the world in general, then at that point, I feel you have responsibility to actually understand these things, to actually dig deeper, to actually speak the truth. And that doesn't mean there aren't some comedians out there doing it, but it is sad to see them where for a minute you think they're actually against the ruling elite, against those who are oppressing so many people around the world. And then, a year goes by and all of a sudden they're suddenly promoting Donald Trump and Elon Musk. And you're like, what did you ever stand for? It's unclear.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Their wallet. So, let's start with like, what do you think is the most important thing going on right now? Like, if you had to pick the first thing to start with, like, what are you most, because, okay, and let's just for the second, we could take Gaza off the table, because that to me is sort of like the obvious. I'm not going to let you off that easy. Okay, so let's take that off the table. Like, what would be the next thing that I'm not going to say keeps you up, but that you're thinking about?
Well, it's funny. It's a catch-22. So yeah, you had to take Gaza off the table, because I would immediately say Gaza. But beyond that, I'd say it's a combination between climate crisis and what Trump, but really it's the ruling elite in general. I don't want to act like it's just a Trump thing, but are doing to the social order, the geopolitical world. But I do see, like, yeah, the U.S. empire needs to end. The thing is, we need to end it with cooperation, with compromise, with degrowth, with things like that. And instead, they are ending it because it can't go anywhere. I mean, it's a cornered tiger. But they are ending it, but they're ending it by pushing everything towards horrific collapse and towards climate crisis and towards nuclear war. And so it's like, I don't support that. I don't want to see, oh, great. People don't have food stamps anymore. Well, at least that means the U.S. empire is crumbling. I don't celebrate that. So, I'd say
just the end of empire. Like, just the end of civilization as we know it. I mean, that's a good one. I mean, I'm enjoying the show. I really am, because Trump definitely keeps it entertaining. The theater of it is very entertaining. And I was not in any way doubting that this was the direction that Capitol is taking us, regardless of who's in the White House. The politics of it is just, I mean, yeah, they throw bones to different groups of people here and there, depending on who's in office. But at the end of the day, the trajectory of capitalism is the trajectory that we're on. And I kind of feel like the more people get enraged, then the more the revolution coalesces. And so with every one of these cuts and people losing their jobs and people losing their benefits and all of those things, you are creating more and more people that have nothing left to lose. And that is where this is going to go. And it is unfortunately going to be ugly. I don't know of peaceful revolutions, really. I don't know of that historically. And the class war that we're in now is pushing to that point. Like, that's like, I'm looking at this more globally, but yeah. And Trump is just facilitating it.
Well, I'd say one of the biggest things also in terms of what we're dealing with right now is he, at the root of this tariffs thing, and almost no one is talking about that. There's a few like Ben Norton, but there aren't many. The root of this tariffs issue is that the U.S. is losing dollar hegemony. We're losing currency hegemony. Yeah. And this tariff thing is a Hail Mary to try and rescue our petrodollar system, to basically make countries around the world come begging and kissing the ring, and then rewriting the global financial system so that they can rescue dollar hegemony. But the world is moving away from that. The dollar is the global reserve currency, decreases every year. I don't remember the exact percentages, but it's decreased a great amount over the past 5 years, and it will keep going down. BRICS, of course, are creating their own currency methods. And so the world is moving away from dollar hegemony. And that's at the heart of this tariff thing, whether you think Trump's doing an awesome thing or isn't. It seems like pretty much madness, but they never really mention that. There are some internal speeches about it and documents about it, and Trump has said, if BRICS goes outside the dollar, I'm going to put 100% tariff on every one of them. So he has mentioned it here and there, but the nation largely is not talking about the fact that this is why they're doing this crazy Hail Mary right now.
I think it's great because it's like China's like, don't threaten us with a good time. You know what I mean? It's like,
really, they're clicking fast forward on something that was already happening. They're clicking fast forward on the world moving away from the US dollar and from dollar hegemony and from the US dictating everything that happens. They're clicking fast forward, even though they think that they're trying to stop it.
Yeah.
I definitely agree. I think that the power of the dollar has waned significantly, and there are many reasons for that. Something as simple as when we also have mentioned the other day regarding other content creators with talking about modern monetary theory. I don't care if you agree with all of the machinations of what Stephanie Kelton has discussed or Steve Grumbine has discussed. The basic concept of MMT is that we have a fiat currency, the Federal Reserve prints money, and then they tax us on spending for things that we have no say in. We have no say whatsoever in we're totally going to have $1 trillion spending bill for the military now. How about giving the vote to the people and saying, sorry, Donald, I think we're going to have to decide this as a nation.
Well, right. And the reason they can have modern monetary theory, the reason they can print whatever they want and the dollar doesn't become completely valueless is because we're the global reserve currency. The reason we're the global reserve currency is because of the petrodollar. So you start selling oil or if fossil fuels just decrease, if fossil fuels disappear, which is what we need for to deal with climate crisis, if that happens, the dollar is just basically done. You can't print as much money as you want without it losing value. You can't have $1 trillion military budget. And so these things are all connected.
Yeah.
100% agree.
But I'm here for it. I'm here for it. You know, and I was just talking. I think that like Netanyahu is acting suicidal. Like this behavior with like at this particular point, given how weak of a state we know they're really in, despite the friggin' Hasbara that we see, like we know that Israel is really in a bad way. The fact that he's still inching us to get into it with Iran, he knows that they're going to take Israel with them on their way out. He knows that. How would he not know that? I know that. If I know that, he knows that. So it's like, what would happen there? Does he like, that's what I don't get. Like, does he really think that we're going to go annihilate Iran and they're not going to have anything sort of in their little like bag for us and Israel?
I guess it depends on whether you think the Lord is going to save you. If
well, hold on.
If Netanyahu thinks the Lord is going to do it, then.
Well, I mean, if you guys are the chosen people, I mean, hell,
yeah, and luckily we have all the evangelical Zionists behind Israel who just want the Jews to be in Israel so that the end times can come about and the Jews can burn in hell. So, you know, luckily we got all that support going for Israel. Yeah, I don't know what Netanyahu's end game is. I think that he sees it as either they destroy Iran and you end up with greater Israel. And of course, destroy parts of Lebanon and Syria, which a lot of that is already happening. Or they all die in the process, but maybe Netanyahu's fine with going out in a blaze of glory. I don't know.
That's what I think, because I don't see at this point that they're, even if they were to be able to do significant damage to Iran via us, like even if that happened, they're not going to exist in a way after that would allow them to ever be greater Israel. Whatever would be left of them after that would. I don't know
even if it all stopped right now today, I don't know how Israel continues to go on with the brand it has become. It has become a completely genocidal brand. Their economy is held up by the U.S. and Google. So it's like I don't know how they, even if it stopped today, I don't know how they continue.
They're inevitably done. We're watching the end of the Zio state.
There's two thoughts here that I think are very critical. The first one is nobody can ever say another thing again, ever, about the environment until we address the fact that we are responsible for the destruction of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, the greatest ecological disaster maybe we've ever seen. And then on the other hand, you've got the other component, which I still think is being neglected here. And you're seeing it, Lee. I'm sure you're seeing it as often as we're seeing it. There is a significant shift, particularly with the MAGA libertarian faction of the Trump movement. They are not on board with Israel. They do not support this. They do not support any wars. And part of the reason I think that's the case is the conversations we've had with several non-corporate conservative content creators. A lot of these guys are veterans. A lot of these guys served in Iraq. They know exactly what this shit is. They know exactly what the intentions are, and they ain't having it. They're not going to see other people get sacrificed along the way. And I just don't see how Israel, forget the system. The system is breaking down because with Trump, you now have a vote of no confidence. He stands in the Oval the other day and talks about, you made $1 billion, you made $1 billion. It's like, yeah, the system's broken. We get it. But the state of Israel will cease to exist because this is not going to just disappear. The genocide of the Palestinian people is not getting swept under the rug. This is real, and this will reverberate for generations to come, and they're too stupid to recognize it. That's the greatest sin of all, as far as I can see.
Yeah, I don't disagree at all, and I think their best hope is to just normalize all of this, to normalize murdering children as fine in quote unquote warfare, which it's not, but you know, to normalize bombing hospitals on a daily basis and bombing schools, and I don't know what they're going for other than just making that normal and making all of us think like, oh yeah, that's just how things work now.
Yeah. Well, the gaslighting is real. Right? Like the gaslighting is very real. The Darvo.
Gaslighting is real.
Gaslighting
Good play. Good play on LinkedIn there, friend.
but it is, I mean, that's what they do. And even when it's sort of like gaslighting by omission, it's very real. And then it's also a lot of Darvo, which is just, at this point, it's just funny because I just see it and say, okay, that's nice. Thank you for that. Because it's just so obvious. And everything they say, of course, is a projection. But, you know, the fact that people, like we had just talked about Tim Pool sitting down with Netanyahu and what a waste that is. But why would anybody think that anything that comes out of that man's mouth would be accurate, truthful, honest? Like, yeah. I don't understand why people go to our press conferences. I don't understand that at all. Nobody's telling you the truth. Why are you wasting your time?
Yeah, I was just having a friendly chat with Sam Husseini. He does great work by sitting in the back of the State Department, bullshit shows, and you know, it had been months since they'd even called on him, and the last time they called on him, they dragged him out, or they didn't call him. The last time he'd spoken, they dragged him out of the room, kicking and screaming, and ultimately he got a concussion from that he's still recovering from. But yeah, I said to him, I don't know how you sit calmly through those things, through that.
But does he actually like? He knows that nothing that they're saying is true. Nothing. And so what is the point of taking notes?
Well,
like I honestly don't.
I think it's kind of like being a stenographer of genocide, of massacre.
Okay.
You know, like someone needs to take the notes to say this is what we saw. And, you know, he writes for great, you know, some great outlets. And so I think that's the thought process, is like someone needs to see it. Someone needs to bear witness.
Yeah.
To the nonsense.
Yeah.
Like I bear witness every day to the actual thing that we need to be bearing witness to. Like that's what we need to be. The fact that there are people that have to take time out of their day to bear witness to the circus.
Yeah.
That isn't even addressing the thing that we're supposed to be watching. Yeah.
Well, I think it's also fair to say that in light of the revelations regarding, you know, Poole and Rubin and the rest, that opportunism can't be surprising.
Is that the paid by Israel revelations, or which one?
Oh, yes, paid by Israel revelations. And so our friend, James Lee of Breaking Points, thank you, Crystal and Soccer, for hiring James. He's really done an amazing job. And of course, he's been doing these clips that really highlight a significant reason why the Israel lobby is so powerful. It's because you just kind of buy off people. That's really it. And so this group called
Buy Off for Unalive.
Stop Antisemitism. Well, this is a nice little expose that James just dropped earlier today.
I'm after Miss Rachel, and I will come after you. Context is that there's a group called Stop Antisemitism that is accusing Miss Rachel of having transformed her platform into a, quote, amplifier of Hamas propaganda. This is the post that they're citing as anti-Semitic, which the message here is basically stop bombing babies. I mean, we are beyond parody at this point. They're also calling on Attorney General Pam Bondi to investigate Miss Rachel for being a foreign asset or whatever.
Could we just stop and talk for a second, Jen, about the fact as an attorney, the total mockery of the Attorney General and what an absolute toady Pam Bondi really is?
Okay, I just want to look at the fact that they're talking about a legal case about somebody that they don't even print their last name. Okay, so this is like a legal case against Miss Rachel. Okay, let's see how far that goes.
I would literally not know anything who Miss Rachel is, except that earlier today someone told me that she is a much adored creator on.
I would think you would know because you have a little, but do you not? He doesn't.
I do have a little kid. I'd never heard of Miss Rachel, but yeah, it's apparently a huge following.
So what is her jam? I mean, she looks like somebody who does like makeup tutorials.
Okay, can I please tell you something about Miss? I know not. She came after my time as a little person mom. Okay, like my kids were older by the time she came around, but I have seen enough people that I like that are willing to die for Miss Rachel. I kid you not. And I'm talking across the political spectrum. This is sort of like the child entertainment of him picking on Thomas Massie in Congress. And if I can, in all seriousness, this is not going well. I actually follow this they're very rednecky couple. They're really cute. They have a lot of outdoor toys, and I follow them on Instagram, and they're just really cute. Okay. And I saw him that he got complaints on his video because somebody saw Miss Rachel on in the background with his baby in the background. And this guy, who I would not surprise me in the least, was a total Trumpy, went off and was like going to take up arms to protect Miss Rachel. So I'm just saying that this is not someone they should be picking a fight with. This is someone they're going to piss off all their own people.
Well, like the Zionist movement in general, they never know when to stop. And this clearly is an example of that. So we'll continue.
Again, just unhinged. But let's turn the table here, shall we, and find out who exactly is funding Stop Antisemitism. This next part actually took me a little while because they've actually done a pretty good job of hiding who is behind that group, as they're not a 501c3 nonprofit, meaning they don't have to file any paperwork with the IRS. On their Wikipedia page, it just says that they are a privately funded American advocacy group focused on combating anti-Semitism by exposing individuals perceived by the group as anti-Semitic. Lot of quotation mark usage on my part, I know. The group was founded by this lady named Leora Rez, who is a refugee from the former Soviet Union. Remember her name? We'll get back to her in a second. There's also this article from the Washington Post that reports that the Milstein Family Foundation lists Stop Antisemitism as a supported organization on their website. And Adam Milstein is Israeli, served in the IDF, and then moved to America in 1981. But yeah, that's kind of all that's been reported about this organization. That's all we knew up until now. Remember when I said Stop Antisemitism doesn't file any paperwork with the IRS? Well, I did a bunch more digging and I found this fundraising campaign for Stop Antisemitism. And if we scroll to the bottom here, you'll see an organization called the Morona Leadership Foundation. That is their fiscal sponsor. And as you can see here, it is a 501c3 public charity. So I pulled up the 990 for the Morona Leadership Foundation. And lo and behold, listed as their top officer, Leora Rez. Same lady as before. And their top funder is an organization called the Impact Forum Foundation, which is a, quote, exclusive pro-Israel network of philanthropists to fight anti-Semitism, strengthen the state of Israel, and advance the U.S.-Israel alliance. A super American agenda. Scroll down a little bit more, and we find out that the Morona Family Foundation is tied to a bunch of other NGOs, which I'll read off for you, just a few of these for your sampling, such as the Central Fund of Israel, Israel 21C, PFE Israel Endowment Fund, Students Supporting Israel, Talk Israel. Like, what the heck is going on here? But yeah, let's investigate Miss Rachel, who teaches kids hide and seek because she might be funded by Qatar.
I'm telling you, they love her. And everything that I have seen about her, of course, we know how they just smear whoever they just don't like or whatever. Obviously, everything that she has been put out has come from a place of love, like everything. They can't find, and all she has been doing is saying like love for Palestinian children. And like, it's so silly. And they're really pissing off a whole bunch. I'm telling, this is not who they should be picking a fight with.
Well, and it shows that even people who are ostensibly not, political, they're getting pushed to a place where they just can't watch babies being bombed every single day and never say anything. And so it's great to see people that may risk some of their clicks, some of their subscribers, but it's worth it because we got to, like, if you stand for nothing, then I mean, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Do you know
who Miss Rachel is, Peter?
I am not aware of her, but now that I saw a picture of her with Elmo, I mean, she does seem like a pretty dangerous person. We got to take her off the air immediately. Good God.
I've not seen her show, but I know that people love her. Whatever, it doesn't matter. The point is, if they're picking on someone like that, they're out of ideas. They're running out of ideas.
What we've also recognized, as I'm sure you have, and this is one of the downsides of being involved in politics at the level that we're involved in, we are a microcosm of a microcosm. Most people do not want to be involved in this shit. And once you start getting involved with somebody who clearly is a wholesome content creator, who's trying to do right in this world and cannot ignore this obvious genocide, that you would have to be the blind leading the blind at this point to even pretend. But even then, I think Stevie Wonder could see that this is a genocide. This is so bad. And now you want to go after somebody who you really are messing with the wrong type of people, because these are people who don't get involved in politics. And now they're looking at you thinking, oh, I wasn't too crazy about Israel to begin with, but now I'm going to make sure that Israel is brought to its knees.
They're picking on Miss Rachel.
Yeah. I want to bring up something that's a slight tangent here, where the researcher there, what's his name again?
James Lee.
Kingsley, yeah. Great work. But we also have to break ourselves of some of this propaganda language that is just so natural to us that you're kind of just saying what you've heard your whole life. He mentions at one point that the guy had served in the IDF.
Oh, right.
Let's not pretend people serve to commit genocide. That's
right.
A propaganda term. He was in the IDF.
He was in the IDF, right.
And I find myself doing it too, where we're so indoctrinated into this culture that's like, oh, well, Israel's military. You just serve in the military. No.
I don't even put a verb. I'll just generally say, oh, she was IDF.
Yeah. That's how you got to
That's what I do. I mean, because to me, it's like, once you're that, you're just that.
Yeah, and I also think if you look at what happened with Snow White, Rachel Zegler, she's an egomaniac. I get it. But Gal Gadot, I mean, she is the primary reason why millions of people basically told the Snow White remake to stick it. Like, we're not going to watch your movie. You've employed somebody who proudly supports the state of Israel.
I went on and gave it a shitty review, and I never even saw it.
Oh, you're one of those people.
Oh, I am one of those people. Oh, but I am.
But wasn't she but isn't it okay for the IDF to be the evil witch?
Oh.
Well, okay, at least it was appropriate in that regard, but it's like people were like, I saw commentary that people were surprised, or saying she was a bad actress. She's not an actress. She's an IDF psyop that was put here by Zionists to basically do what she's doing because she's attractive, and like, oh, we can make her into like a movie star, and she's a propaganda tool. She's always been.
The best is there's a clip of her during some where they interview the celebrity on stage, and the woman goes, "It's been really tough, I'm sure, for you over the past year. How are you holding up?" And she's like, Gal Gadot's like on the cusp of tears, like, "Oh, it's so hard." And we're like, "It's so hard for you?" Like, being Israeli it's not hard for the people being genocided, like,
right? The ones who can leave freely and unfortunately keep piling here to South Florida in droves.
Yeah.
We have a problem. We have an infestation here.
Lee, Jen talks about it a lot, and obviously being a Jewish woman, it's very difficult to see. Yeah, on the political side, it's very easy, to throw the darts at Wasserman, Schultz, but then you have other people like the Noah Tishbys of the world, the Deborah Messings of the world. I believe that whether consciously or not, they are the ones stirring up the most amount of anti-Semitism in our culture. I think because of their crocodile tears and their bougie, again, Jen, you talked about with Bree, the fact that you grew up with Sheryl Sandberg, and not many people knew that. And Sheryl Sandberg, who's a multi-billionaire, oh, will you hide me? It's this whole...
You saw that, Lee? Did you see the clip of Sheryl?
No, I didn't see that one.
Okay, so she was talking with a friend, and it's a clip of her getting all emotional, talking about how she asked her friend, if it came to it, would you hide me and my family? And because billionaires need to be hidden, they can't go, build a bunker somewhere. But regardless, like,
and did you see? So she's obviously the one, or one of the main ones behind that ridiculous documentary claiming Hamas raped everybody.
And there's a new one.
That's the thing that she did with Debbie. That's the project that she did.
Okay, with Debbie, yeah. But so just whatever it was yesterday, Gray Zone and some others showed that there was a report about how one of the main guys in that documentary, who says, "Oh, I saw all these raped women and I rescued a bunch of them," he's been found out, shock, to be a complete liar. And there was a long segment that was going to air on Israeli television, and the news station, at the last second, after all the investigation, all the filming and everything, censored it and wouldn't play it. But basically, they created a long investigation into how this guy has lied about everything he's ever said about all these raped women.
I knew Max had done some work and knew, it was interesting when any of that stuff was coming out. I remember watching something where Max was basically like, oh yeah, that's so-and-so. And he of course is going to say that because of this, this, and this. Oh yeah, he's not even real. It was just it was all just a complete, and it's been debunked. And yet Carol still hasn't retracted anything. No. She didn't say shit about the actual rapes that are, let's be real, have always been occurring of Palestinians that are in Israel's custody. So that didn't get brought up. And now this whole new thing coming out about the new rise in anti-Semitism, and she's crying victim now.
And to go back to what you were just saying about anti-Semitism, at the absolute minimum, this just completely dilutes what the hell the word anti-Semitism means. It essentially has no meaning now because Israel has worked so hard to get everybody to conflate Jews with Israel and Israel with Judaism. And on top of that, accuses anyone who criticizes Israel of anti-Semitism, so that when there's real anti-Semitism, the words lost all meaning. It's like when you yell, it really is the kid who cried wolf or whatever. It's like you yell it constantly. Then if there's anti-Semitism, well, it's meaningless now.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's important that we cover this clip that I had our esteemed producer Colin cut down to hopefully a few minutes. But for those who don't know, this only happened a few hours ago. Joe Rogan actually had Dave Smith and Doug Murray on to debate Israel-Palestine. And it is very interesting when you get somebody as high up as Doug Murray to hear the talking points that he uses to defend Israel.
I don't know who that is. Am I supposed to know who that is?
He's from the UK. But
okay. Lee, do you know who that is?
I know who the other two are. I don't know who Doug Murray is.
Okay.
We're about to find out.
Have to be on the ground and do an audit of the blockade in order to be able to comment on it?
I think you should at least know what it is, what the territory is, what the situation is in the region. Yes, absolutely.
And the only way to do that is to be there in person.
I think that's the best way. It's not the only way, but it's the best way, for sure. For sure. If you have never seen the countries in question, you've never spoken to the people in question, you've never interviewed anyone, you've never gone around, you've never seen the terrain, and so on, and you've used Wikipedia, I'm sorry, no, that's not the same thing.
Okay, well, I've not just used Wikipedia, but didn't you write a big piece when the war in Ukraine first came out, titled something like, "Been to Ukraine and they can win, they can repel the Russians"? So you could go there and still get it wrong, right?
No, I was with the Ukrainian armed forces in 2022 when they were retaking territory from the Russians.
Right, the last time they had any advances,
Yeah,
right.
I said I can see how they can win, which would be advances like that, yeah.
You said if we just fund them, or if we just arm them, that they can then repel.
I said that the Ukrainian army was making great successes, which it was when I was with them in the fall of 22.
Okay, listen, there were...
Notice the tell. The tell is always the same every fucking time. I'm not a forensic FBI agent. I promise you I'm not. But the second a person who's trying to convince you that they're full of shit and trying to get away with it and they don't know what the talking point is, they always look in another direction. So, of course, Murray decided to start looking in the other direction when Dave Smith brought up the fact that, weren't you the same motherfucker that went on national TV and basically said that if we just continue funding Ukraine, they're eventually going to beat Russia? And that was over 3 years ago. And you said that shit? And people still go to you that he's the answer? These fucking people, they all need to be in The Hague as far as I'm concerned. And they all do it for money.
Lots of people who went to Iraq and said, we'll be greeted as liberators and it'll be paid for in oil and democracy will spread through the region. So I don't know. Either take on the arguments or don't. But I don't think
but your argument's incorrect.
Oh, okay, fine. Well, then present a counter argument to it. But to just tell me I'm not allowed to talk about something because I'm not an expert.
You're not allowed to
okay,
talk
fine.
About
well, you're
it.
not
I've
an expert, so you shouldn't talk about it. You
now.
haven't been there. Yeah, I know. But you keep playing this game where it's like the whole opening to this podcast was like the non-experts talking about this is such a problem. Now you're saying because I haven't been there, I can't talk about it. Is there a blockade there that's causing economic devastation or not? According to the World Bank, there is.
First of all, I don't think it's a game. I don't think it's a game at all.
Me neither.
I'm not playing a game. Okay,
but this is semantics.
No, but this is important. I've seen.
So he asked him a question. Is the blockade causing devastation to Gaza? and he doesn't want to answer.
Yeah, no, this is classic con man stuff. These are all the fucking pathetic arguments that people who don't want to address the real discussion have said again and again and again for the past year and a half, but since time immemorial. Oh, you haven't been there like I was. Now, who knows how long he was there? How long was he in Gaza? You know? Okay, so 5 years ago, he was there for a couple of days, and that makes him an expert. It's all garbage. It's like I wasn't in the Holocaust. All right, I can have an opinion on the Holocaust. It is bullshit to say, oh, you haven't been there for a few days, therefore you just need to let this genocide happen and back up. It's disgusting and revolting. And now he doesn't want to answer this latest accusation. So he says, what was the last thing he said? I don't think it's a game. That's another thing is like they find one word you said and they make the debate about that word. Oh, see, you think it's a game. Let's talk about the word game. It's like, no, that's not the discussion.
Oh, and that's the problem with the Brits is that they think.
I don't even know who this is. That's why it's great. I have no idea who that is.
No, Doug Murray is he's considered a smart conservative intellectual.
Don't do that. When you do that, you always effeminate all British men.
That is not true.
You do though. You make them all sound like the male version of Mary Poppins.
Well, then, if you'd rather that I just talk to him,
don't
like
do the Irish. Stop.
No, I'm definitely doing the Irish.
Oh,
this stupid don't know jack shit. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And just
a little bit less effeminate, but now you sound like Lucky Charms.
Just remember, the Brits suck because they put themselves with the Israel flag, just like the numbnuts over in the Americas.
Oh.
But just remember that Ireland, we always put the Palestinian flag first.
Yeah, but you still sign off on weapons and still trade with them. Continue.
And seriously, kudos to the Irish for always standing with Palestine. They do on one hand, but then they don't really do. But anyway, continue.
Plenty of it up.
Oh, you know something? Because I was just watching Claire Daly and, oh my God, I forget his name, On with Katie. You know who I'm talking about? They used to be the guy, white-haired.
Guy. Yeah, I forgot. Shit.
It's like his name is Mick, and I don't want to say that in a derogatory way, but I really think his name is Mick.
No. But
anyway.
You got a thought, Lee.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the other thing that makes this like you haven't been there argument so laughable is, okay, so what about the millions living in Gaza right now who say it's a genocide? Do they not count either? Just the white guy who went to visit for a few days is the only voice that can be heard on this. Like,
you know what that is, Peter? You know what that is? That's caucasity right there. You know how you always want, I'll give you the examples whenever I see it. I'll call it.
It's good to know that Doug Murray is 100% a caucastic son of a bitch. Good.
There you go.
Close. I've seen plenty of this with my own eyes because I do believe.
You mean just like the raped children? Is it that too?
Beheaded babies. You mean the beheaded babies in the ovens?
If you're talking about something, is to see it.
Yeah, you've established that. Is there a blockade?
The blockade that existed, to the extent it existed, was a blockade to try to make sure that the Israelis and the Egyptians knew what materials were going in and out of Gaza after the first rocket fires, when Hamas, in fact, before Hamas was elected. The Israelis and the Egyptians didn't do a very good job of it, were meant to be trying to make sure that the materials that went into Gaza were not materials that could be used to build up the Gazan Hamas war machine. The reason why trucks get searched is not because the Israelis want to search through grain or flour. It's because they wanted to stop the trucks containing the arms and the munitions that the Gazan Hamas and Islamic Jihad fighters were going to use to fire against Israel.
Now, the question
because they're not allowed to self-defense, right? So they're not allowed to, like, that's my thing is, okay, even if it is right, but the fact that somebody gets to control what someone else can, like,
right. I love these things where it's like so much to pick apart in one sentence that you're like, all right, well, let's go for like half an hour to pick apart this. Okay, for one, he said when Hamas got elected, we're talking 2006, I believe. So apparently since 2006, Israel has the right to decide every last piece of grain that enters Gaza.
Yep.
And then he says, oh, they just are looking for guns. Bullshit. They have decided whether medical equipment gets in, whether food gets in, whether water gets in. They have leaked emails from WikiLeaks have shown that they literally said we're going to put Gaza on a diet, and we keep a certain number of calories going in there so that it's actually less than what a human adult should have, so that they're all starved and on the brink of collapse. These things have been going on for decades. Like, oh yeah, they just stopped guns going in. But then what you just said, Jen, is the biggest point. I like to play the game, even if it were true.
Right.
Even if it were true that they're not letting guns in. Why is it that Gaza and the West Bank aren't entitled to an army while every other country in the world is? Oh, because they're not allowed to be a country, because they're not allowed to be a people, because they're in refugee camps, because they're prisoners under Israel. So it's like, yeah, that would be fucked up even if that were true.
Right. Well, so that's the thing. So anybody, whether he's doing it right now, but sitting there and making the argument that Israel is just keeping certain things, whatever it is, I don't care about keeping things from someplace else that should be its own entity.
Right.
It's the whole problem. The fact that they can turn off the water, the fact that they like all of that, that's the whole problem. And he's sitting there as if that basic premise is perfectly fine because he's a white supremacist. So to him, it's okay that one country is able to do that to another people in general. It's okay that they get to monitor their mail like they're in a prison.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, it just makes the most obvious strategic sense. As the late great Joan Rivers once said, if as an appeal to authority.
That one I'll allow. That one I like.
She also said that Michelle Obama's a man.
Yeah, I know she did that.
No, I'm saying she got everything right. So continue. Go ahead.
But as Joan Rivers said, if New York was being rocketed from New Jersey, we would level New Jersey. I don't think you need to level it, by the way. But you would at least try to make sure that rockets weren't being imported in larger quantities into New Jersey.
Of course.
Okay.
But if New York had weapons in large quantities, why would they get to decide that New Jersey doesn't get to?
Exactly. He had to pick 2 U.S. states in the same country. If Mexico, like, are we allowed to decide whether Mexico has guns or missiles? Like, no. So he had to pick 2 states in the same country to make it make any kind of sense.
It's ridiculous. Well, and it's funny you bring up Mexico because I saw as soon as Scheinbaum got elected there and I really saw the writing on the wall with getting Trump in again, I'm like, oh, this is going to be fun. Because I knew he wouldn't know what to do with her. He cannot handle her. First of all, she's attractive and smart. He doesn't know what to do with that.
Well, that's totally not true. I totally can handle her. She just
won't be mean to her. He won't. And she's not having any of his. Can you imagine what she must think of him? Seriously, like what kind of buffoon moron must she think he is?
Well, the same as all the rest of us.
Yeah, really. But it only makes things more obvious how bad things are going because the things that Scheinbaum is doing in Mexico is improving that nation exponentially through a left populist movement. And they are really kind of taking us to task in a lot of ways. So you're going to have to ask yourself, how much longer is this going to go on? Much like with Doug Murray, how much longer do you think you continue to spew these bullshit lies that are so easily debunked? And what the hell is it with the Brits, especially the Tories, with their obsession with Israel? Like, what is that all about? Where does that stem from? Are you aware of that in any way?
Lee, did you go get your PhD in like Tory politics?
I mean, it's just the same as with the U.S. They're connected at the hip. They view Britain because Britain's like a vassal state of the United States. They view Israel as the battleship, the unsinkable battleship in the Middle East. It has allowed them to destroy country after country, Iraq, Libya, Syria. It's allowed them to get their oil and their pipelines going. And so it's just all the same reasons that the U.S. does.
Yeah.
Well, do you think it's possible? Because, look, we would really like to have Whitney Webb on at some point. But I think that you really can make the argument, especially with people like RFK, that there is just this massive blackmail scandal that's been going on with Israel for the longest time. I know people talk about Jeffrey Epstein, and that's certainly valid, but I think it's much deeper than that. I think that the way that they keep everything in line and just this constant fawning over the state of Israel. And we were talking earlier about the hypocrisy of somebody like Cory Booker, that you cannot call for one thing when you're doing this other thing that's so much worse, and it's indefensible. But at this point, I don't know what to think other than they have to be holding something over people's heads to continually get them to say the same thing, double and triple down on it. And the genocide it's at its worst point.
I mean, here's the thing: I'm not going to rule out any blackmail. Obviously, the Epstein was involved in all kinds of blackmail with connected to Mossad, etc. But I think people overthink it. I don't think it has to be blackmail. I think that people like RFK and Cory Booker are making a calculated decision that you go against Israel and you are done. Like, and I don't just mean executed. I just mean that, like, the amount of money that will be put against you to get you out of these positions. And, we saw them take out, 2 more members of the squad. Now, I realize we all have criticism of the squad, but I'm just saying, like, they decided these members are not good enough for Israel, and they were able to get 2 more of them out. And it's like they'll sink $100 million on a tiny little election to stop someone who criticizes Israel. I just interviewed that congresswoman. What was her name? Marie Newman, I think. Mm-hmm. They got her out because she criticized Israel, and it's like I think they could just be making an equation. Cory Booker realized he stays in Congress if he sides with Israel, and he doesn't if he goes against them.
That's what I think too. I think Peter wants to. I think he wants to think it's.
He wants to believe they're better than that.
Well, I think it is. I think it's as simple as what you're saying. And some of them might actually believe this shit when they go on those propaganda tours. Like there is actual,
I mean, above everything else, I think it is career advancement. I think they understand the benefit of it. We've seen what somebody like not a B-list actor, not a C-list actor, but a D- actor, Michael Rappaport, is willing to do in terms of trying to salvage his sorry ass career. And that's what they'll do. If it pays, so be it. Even if you're not going to get movie roles, maybe you're going to get some type of a nonprofit opportunity to be a spokesperson for the cause.
Yeah, but I think a lot of those A-listers are afraid that it greatly decreases the opportunities they're going to get in Hollywood, continue to get, if they come out.
Yeah.
Well,
and that's all industry. That's people in all jobs are scared to speak up. I mean, look professors, it's everywhere. I mean,
Jen, tell Lee your little story about Marie Newman and what happened when she decided to grace us with her presence as a sitting congresswoman, mind you.
Did not go well.
No, it was fine. I didn't have a problem with that.
Went very well, actually.
No, so we had her on when she was sitting in Congress a few years ago, and it was fine. I mean, it was good. She was nice. We had a good conversation, I think, whatever, and I didn't find this out until this past election when I just ran, because I had a conversation with her again. We were just talking, and it comes up that after she had come on our show, she was standing on the floor in the House, just, talking to some other people, or whatever. And Debbie Wasserman Schultz comes storming up to this group of people and goes, "How dare you go on the show with that criminal?" And this is coming from Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and then said, "I forbid you to go on that show again." And
wow.
Oh yeah. And Marie Newman looked at her and said, "You can't tell me what to do." And that was basically the whole thing. But Debbie felt totally emboldened to walk up to her, a fellow congressperson, in front of other people and talk to her that way.
Yeah. Yeah. That's crazy.
It's a disease. It's got to go away. And I'm not just talking about Debbie. I'm talking about the current system that we're stuck with, which really, really sucks. So as we do wind down the conversation, what do you think is going to unfold at this point? Like, I know there's a lot of different things we could talk about, but it does seem that the eye of the hurricane definitely rests in what is going to ultimately happen in Gaza, and with it, the state of Israel, because I do think that they've passed the point of no return. Do you feel it's the same case?
Yeah, I think Israel's days are numbered, but when they have the U.S., when the U.S. has their back like this, they are tied to the fate of the U.S. The U.S. can prop them up economically and militarily as long as the U.S. is still an empire. So, and how long will that be? So it really depends on the way that the U.S. goes out.
I mean, that would explain why they feel the need to pay off people like Tim Pool and Dave Rubin. But what they're finding is that, first of all, people are not keeping their mouth shut anymore. This used to be very quiet. Now it's wide open. And you're seeing the people, like I said, we've had people on our podcast like CanCon and Luke Rudkowski. We've talked to all these guys. Luke Rudkowski, who was basically like one of Tim Pool's main people for the longest time. And he ain't with this shit. Like, he knows that this is all one big dirty effing scam. And I think once that starts to happen, it's not going to happen from the outside. Congress is not going to wake up one day and decide that everything's okay. But as Jen, as you often like to point out, when you start pissing off the side that's armed to the teeth, it's not a smart move.
See, this is the thing. Trump's now pissing off the red team. And this is, they don't care if they piss off the blue team because they're not scared of the blue team. The blue team is there to actually just be MIC resistance. But now you're cutting benefits and pissing off the red team, and the red team is armed. And so this is now where I think that the revolution comes from. When they're cutting people's benefits and they're taking people's jobs and they're unemploying tons of veterans who have PTSD, all right? It's not going to go well. You're creating more and more Luigi Mangiones. You're creating more and more people with nothing left to lose. And to me, that's that's the revolution. That's how it happens, is enough people are just beyond fed up that they have nothing else to do but take to the streets. That's where it comes from. And he's making it so, like, he's facilitating.
Yeah, and I mean, the key is, how are those people organized? Like, Chris Hedges has talked about this a lot. Like, waning empires, collapsing empires can devolve into fascism, into, roving gangs of armed gunmen, or they can go another route. We can go a route towards cooperation and mutual aid and community and all of those things that we should be building up. But a lot of it has to do with organizing and how are these groups organized as the change continues to happen. And Trump is definitely fast forwarding a change, a drastic change or revolution that was coming to the United States, whether he realizes it or not. He's trying. He thinks he's trying to rescue the hegemony, the global ownership by the United States, but he is actually fast forwarding the waning of the U.S. empire. And I very much hope we get that planetary phase shift towards sustainability and abundance. And by the way, we haven't gotten into this aspect, but the answers are fucking out there. Like, the answers for how we should be living as humans to actually have sustainable, cooperative communities. Like, we have the technology, we have the ability, it's all there. We're just refusing to use most of it because we're following the money as opposed to the solutions. And it's a pathetic path to take when the answers are really sitting there right there in front of your face. But it's exciting that a lot of people are talking about what really matters, talking about this genocide, talking about stopping it, and organizing to create a really spectacular change.
Yeah, part of the problem is not everybody's on. They know they don't like this. Right? Like, they know that they don't like what we have now, but not a lot of people necessarily have the vision, and definitely don't share the vision that from what I'm hearing you share with me, which is, I am a fan of degrowth, small sustainable communities. I think we need to live in all sorts of different configurations, different from how we are now. And I also don't think that we're going to be able to sustain our level of existence and do that. I just don't think it's possible. And so for me, it is about degrowth, and nobody really wants to hear that. And part of that, as we know, is it's not profitable.
Well,
the people that
it
are
goes
in
against
charge,
it goes against the gravity of capitalism. You're
that's the problem.
Fighting the monster.
Right. So personally, I'm already getting, I'm moving to, I'm going to get a little property. I want to have some chickens, my whole own little thing going on, have some artist co-ops and some, stuff like that. But those kinds of degrowth, that's where the answer is.
And you're gonna re-educate those chickens to know what's up.
Well, I at least have to try to get non-tainted, bird flu chickens.
True.
But yeah.
With that said,
hey, how's your little? Let me tell you, your little has the cutest back of the head, because I've only seen the back of his little head.
Yes, we have not put his face on the facial readers yet.
No, nor should you. Although I wouldn't completely mind if there was any way for me to see a picture. I'm just saying.
Here's the thing: you just got to come through Baltimore, and then you can come see us in person.
Okay, because I want to. He's very cute back ahead. If you haven't seen him,
Well, since I'm the capitalist here, we'll see how my career in commercial real estate continues.
You shouldn't brag about that. You say that like it's a good thing.
I'm not bragging about it. I'm just saying that I do participate in the actual. I'm in commercial.
We all participate in it because we have no friggin' choice.
But I will tell you, in the waters that I swim in, it's actually very interesting to talk with people that are of the top, like even 1/10 of 1%.
Yeah,
and are they the ones that actually are tyrannical bastards? Absolutely. I do not hesitate. They have no soul whatsoever. There is no compassion. It's all about profit, however which way I can get it. But there are a lot of them out there that actually know what's going on, and they're very concerned, and they don't really know what they should do. Well, I'm not saying that you should just give up, all of your resources. That's not the solution either. But what is the solution is recognizing that, kind of like the stock market, if you can't see at this point that the stock market is a scam, that whatever you've been fed for many years, that this idea that if you just invest smartly and you do it this way, etc. No, that's not how this works. You are trying to believe in a system that is predatory and rigged. So
if we had another hour, we can go into how the stock market is the dictionary definition of a Ponzi scheme.
Thank you. That's what I've always thought. Like, I don't understand how people don't.
The second Bernanke went on 60 Minutes and said, and I quote, "We just put the numbers in at the, on a computer screen and we create the money." And I'm just thinking, and you people still buy into this bullshit of a system? Like, at what point do you not recognize that, first of all, that is monetary theory, that is creating money, because that's what they do. And we, as taxpayers, do not get a say in how our tax money is allocated. And for those who don't know, do you know what the number one tax is that we pay in the United States? Corporate subsidies. That is the number one tax. Yeah. Do not believe the bullshit about Social Security or Medicare or anything else. It is corporate subsidies so that these rich fat cat fucks can do whatever they want. And they do whatever they want. I know it because I work in their world. So trust me, it's pretty freaking bleak. But I do think we are turning a corner. We have definitely turned a corner on Israel. How hard of a corner have we turned? Still a little early to tell. But I do think that the propaganda machine is nowhere near what it once was. It is horrifically terrible that what is happening to the Palestinians is going to continue for the foreseeable future. But if we can stop this, then I think we can actually stop this broken system. Because in many ways, as you've often said, Israel is us.
Israel is us. They are a part of us, for sure. Lee, are you in any way, do you realize that Jewish Voice for Peace is having their annual national meeting in Baltimore this year? Did you know that?
Yeah, I technically have joined up with JVP, but I haven't gone to a meeting yet. So,
well, the fact that they're having their big one there, I'm sure they would really appreciate it. So my friend down here is a woman who grew up Jewish. Her dad's Jewish, and she's married to a Palestinian woman. And her dad at age 63 is going up there to like get in on the fight, right? Like he's going in there. He's like, I'm 63. I'm going to my first protest. Like he's all like into it. So I don't know, somebody like you being there would be really cool. I know it's at the convention center in Baltimore.
Yeah, maybe I can get down there. I got to look into it more. When is it?
It's like the end of the month or something like that. It's like at the end of this month.
Yeah.
But I know that.
Jen, maybe you should get up there.
Honestly, if I didn't have so many other things that I was going to, if I lived there, I would.
All right, don't guilt me like that.
I'm just saying, if I lived, no,
there's a direct flight from Fort Lauderdale to Baltimore every day, or there is a direct flight to our nation's capital.
And here's the thing: when I go to Baltimore, I want to go to
direct into a helicopter.
I want to go to the place.
Oh, dude, don't even talk about helicopters right now.
Eleanor's always posting about that. She's always putting up like things from like the poetry and the artists and the stuff like that. And I'm like, I want to go there. That's where I want to go.
Well, yeah, she's amazing and a poet and everything else. But yeah, Red Emma's here, the bookstore here that also is a great center to the art scene. Yeah.
I don't have anything like that here. Nothing.
Well, that's why you got to go.
Florida for you.
Oh, it's terrible.
Brother.
All right, everybody, where can we find you? You're on YouTube, yes?
I am on YouTube. I would love for everyone to check out Unredacted Tonight. Whether you knew Redacted Tonight and you liked it or you've never heard of it, it's basically like if you wish the Daily Show actually got to the heart of things and was actually left wing and didn't just do corporate bullshit, this is the show for you. It's called Unredacted Tonight. It's the best place is leecamp.com/unredacted. That'll take you to the playlist. We have an episode that just premiered tonight, the latest episode. And the other place you can look for all my work, I have podcasts, several of them, and all this stuff. So go to linktree.com/LeeCamp, LeeCamp.
He does not need to plug Eleanor. She's got her whole own thing going.
Oh, well, Teresa's a
contributor. Well, I love plugging Eleanor. Artkillingapathy.com is where you can find all of Eleanor Goldfield's work. It's writing, it's poetry. She has a new Substack, but that's the main site. And Radical Nuance is her newer podcast, but she also co-hosts Project Censored. You guys probably know Project Censored.
Yes, we do. I appreciate it. No, I appreciate it. She's the more artsy, she's that. And that's really my vibe. So I really
unless you consider comedy art.
I do consider comedy art. And I've said it a million times, guys. You have to watch Lee because he makes things that aren't funny. And that's important.
You guys both got to come through Baltimore now.
Okay. All right. I'll make my way to Baltimore.
Appreciate you, brother. Keep fighting the good fight.
Thanks, Lee.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Talk to you. Great guy. And obviously one of our regular guests. Now we got to get Katie back on. Got to get on all the non-Israel supporting Jewish influencers who actually can make a difference, which is always nice to see.
You know what? It's important. It's really important. And the people that I know that I stand in solidarity with, people like Lee, people like Max, people like Katie, right? Like that's very good company to be in for me. So it's comfortable.
Great.
You know what I mean? Like it's nice to know. Yeah. And Ben Cohen, there's a lot of cool Jews. There's a lot of us.
There's a few. Some even make good
Aaron Matte. There's a lot of us. All the Mattes.
If you like our small but mighty channel, get over to patreon.com/generational change for as little as $5 a month. You can become a supporter of our small but mighty channel. But if you are so inclined, as a number of our wonderful supporters have been, you can also leave a super chat.
Travers, you're not from Baltimore. Jesus.
Teresa, thank you so much for the $10. The revolution will have comedy. Yes. It always
all the best. All the best people. That's the thing. People that are if you think back historically, the greatest comedians ever are progressive people, progressive thinkers, advanced thinkers. Always. You know what I mean? That's always the case. The comedians are never shit libs. Even that little clip I forwarded you from Judah Friedlander in the club.
What part of Palestine are you from?
If you guys don't know, we've had Judah Friedlander on here. It's been a long time, but we've had him on a couple times. And he does this. There's this clip of him floating around Instagram where he's doing his stand-up and he asks people in the audience where they're from. And some guy goes, Israel. And he goes, oh, what part of Palestine?
Which is exactly how everyone should respond to that.
It was great.
Extra Medium, thank you so much for becoming a YouTube member. It does appear that you are new to our channel. And so with that, thank you so very, very much for the $20. And if you want to improve the shack behind you.
Okay, but here's the thing. And I know that that's sweet. And thank you so much for Super Chat. But for people who don't know, I'm really not in a shack. I'm really in a garage. But
no, you just want to pretend that you're a poor person so that people will give you money.
No, because the truth is when people see this, most people really love it. So I actually have a collection of antique shutters and they used to hang in my dining room at my last house. I had a bigger house than I'm in now and I had the whole wall was covered in vintage shutters and it was just really cool. And when we moved, I didn't have the space for them. So they kind of became the backdrop of the studio because I like my vintage shutters. But I do realize it kind of does make it look like I'm in a shack.
Just a little bit. Mark J, thank you for the $2. Thank you for the discussion and bringing Lee on. Lee is definitely, he doesn't come on every day, but he's definitely a regular. He's always welcome. Definitely one of the good people.
He's somebody I've hung out with in real life. So it's just different with people that I've met in real life.
Extra Medium, thank you for the $20 again. 3 of my favorite anti-Semiticals. Oh,
I like that.
That's good.
That's great.
Sarah, thank you for the $1. Every dollar counts.
Always. It's very helpful.
We appreciate it. The progressive lefty. Thank
Okay,
you.
Travers is going on about that there's a place called Baltimore somewhere else. Okay, I'm sorry then for not knowing that there's a Baltimore.
Hey, listen, there's a lot of places in the United States that we steal names from other parts of the world. So
of course, but he knew I was talking about Baltimore here.
The progressive lefty, thank you for the 5 Canadian dollars. Lee was the first super chat I ever gave to Love, Lee, and Eleanor. Well, thank you for giving it to us. And it is much.
And their little is so cute. I don't know if you follow, if you don't follow Eleanor on Instagram, because she's the one who posts the pictures a lot.
Okay.
Of their little.
Okay. If you're coming here from Due Dissonance, we really appreciate you being here. We are asking anybody who is a supporter of Keaton and Russell's channel, please, for the love of God, talk about MMT already. Stop avoiding this topic from us with love and consideration.
Yeah.
So once again, if you are so inclined, patreon.com/generational change. For as little as $5 a month, you can become a supporter of our small but mighty channel. Jen, assuming that our schedule is correct, who's coming on our show on Monday?
The Queen is coming. That I always do that. You don't remember the one with the cat? There are all these like women, I think, picking up a cat and going, the Queen is coming. And I think it has something to do with the Princess Diaries, but I never saw the Princess Diaries. But anyway, the Queen is coming.
Nina Turner will be returning. It's been a while. We're looking forward to catching up. Obviously, we've got a lot to talk about, especially Ohio politics and everything that's going on in the country right now. And, possibly, I think it may be good to talk with her about the direction that a content creator we think very highly of, that I know she's very friendly with, Tim Black, and how he does not hold back. And how, what are we to do going forward? Because
Tim Black is honestly, he says a lot of things that I so want to say, but I can't because I'm white. And that is I so appreciate him for that. It's true. And I know it is what it is, folks. It is what it is. But he calls out the right people in that mismanagement class. And that's or misleadership class is what they call it, the Black misleadership class. And it is a real thing and it's a real problem. And it's so much better coming from him. So appreciate it.
Shout out, even though, he definitely is a gatekeeper of the Democratic Party, but credit where credit is due. Tavis Smiley did interview Butch Ware on his radio station.
Okay.
Great. Good. As long as you give him a platform, let him state his case. This is why the Black community and the working class at large should be supporting a Green Party candidate in the state of California for governor. Good.
See, this is one of those things where you remember when Joe Biden's like, if you don't vote for me, then you're not Black. Remember that?
Yeah. Yes.
So I'm sitting there and I'm thinking in all seriousness, the idea that somebody who really does care about justice and liberation of all peoples and justice for Black Americans, justice for whatever, you're not that if you wouldn't support someone like Butch Ware.
That's true.
You're just not. So anybody who claims to care about things like not just reparations, but just in general, helping the oppressed, helping the indigenous, and really creating a system that is just, then if you don't support him, then you're not that person. So that's how I feel.
I think a great place to close the show is this wonderful clip of who I think we would both agree is certainly the most impactful congressperson on the Hill. We started with the worst congressperson. Let's end with the best.
Israeli fat. I want to see single loyalty to the United States of America. Tell me about the Dual Loyalty Disclosure Act.
Yeah, we swear an oath to the Constitution. And the question is, if you're a citizen of two countries, which oath are you taking more seriously? Or can you take them both seriously? Look, I would prefer that people with dual citizen have to renounce their citizenship in the other country before they run. But at a minimum, we should do what the bill I introduced does, which is require candidates for federal office to disclose whether they have dual citizenship and which countries they may have citizenship in. That way, the voters can decide whether they should be able to represent the United States.
Our loyalty should be singular, especially as an elected representative to the United States of America. Great to hear from you, Congressman Massie. Thank you so much.
And I want to be clear about this. I not only agree that they should have to disclose, but they need to renounce during their time in service. You cannot simultaneously be a citizen of two countries and serve in the legislature of this country. To me, I don't think that's a good plan. I have no problem with doing that, just like I don't think you should be invested in the stock market while you're serving. If you have foreign interests or corporate interests or any kind of other interests other than your constituents, then you're really not qualified to be there. So I do agree they should have to disclose, just like they should disclose what their money is, but it isn't enough to disclose it. I think if you want to be in office here, you can only be a citizen here for the duration of that service.
I think that sounds pretty reasonable.
And I bet you anything progressives probably think that's conservative.
There's a lot of things that progressives.
I just mean, it's like, I have no problem with that, but anything that would in any way create the appearance of an impropriety needs to be non-existent for people that serve in certain positions.
And isn't it amazing when you have a representative, regardless of whether you agree with them politically or not, how refreshing it is when the person is not bought by corporate special interests and just says whatever the hell needs to be said? Like, to me, that above everything else.
Wanker Tanker, if I'm not mistaken, go back and look. It has something to do with, was his dad the military? Or his dad was a diplomat.
Some type of applause of some kind, yeah.
Yeah, his parents were citizens, so he was born somehow in a. Yeah, he can run for president.
Okay.
We don't want that, but he's not disqualified in the way that you would be hoping.
So I just have to say, because I just got back from Vegas, and I have to tell you, anyone that invests money in that city right now, like in terms of, like let's say multifamily housing. I mean, the super rich are the super rich and they control the hotels. That's a different story. But if you're just an investor who's trying to invest in a city like Las Vegas, there is a serious water crisis going on in that city. Now, everyone has different opinions about how serious of a problem it really is. But I can remember being at an event and the taste of the water. And I'm thinking to myself, they have run this thing through God knows how much chlorine or God knows what the hell that they've had to do to clean that water supply.
Where were you drinking the water?
I was drinking it at a sports bar at this networking event that I was at.
Okay, so it was just you ordered water. Like it wasn't like you were at a sink in your hotel.
No, it's at a regular place that should have clean pipes. Maybe they don't. But what I do know is bottled water, to purchase bottled water, whether at the hotel, whether at the airport, it's now over $8 a bottle. Water shouldn't cost anything, but we should have taken the CEO of Nestle a lot more seriously than we did when he made the statement about a decade ago that water is not a right, it's a privilege, and we will charge you for it when we can. But he wasn't lying. Progressive Lefty, thank you so much for the $2. Always appreciate your support.
You got a new one too.
Another one. Canada's new prime minister has 3 passports.
Yeah, that's a problem. I have a problem with that. And I don't know who it is. And he might be great. Look, my Canadian friends are pleased that he's there over Trudeau now. Like, so I don't think he's like a bad person, but I don't like that. I don't like that.
And speaking of which, Donald, thank you for showing up. We wondered where you've been. It's great to know that you would vote for Butch Ware. But you see,
because people have concerns about his capability of winning, of course.
Sure.
Because there's always got to be the first time that a third party, and it's always an uphill battle. But he is somebody that can really do some damage in that district, in that area, in the state, like that you wouldn't be able to get anywhere else.
But also imagine just how absolutely tone deaf you have to be, where even what would have been considered one of the truly good representatives in the Democratic Party, and Katie Porter, swears allegiance to Israel in the most kowtowing ways possible. And this person's running for governor of California. How in the hell do you not support Butch Ware? At least he's saying what needs to be said. He's using it. And when somebody says, what does Palestine have to do with being the governor of California? Why don't you ask Katie Porter what the fuck Israel has to do with California?
Exactly. That's the more important question.
Smash that like button, share, subscribe, bless you, and do all those things that we ask you to do so that Jen doesn't get sick and has to get medicine so we can afford to make sure she's okay.
I'm okay. Nobody should be taking up a collection for me.
We appreciate you all. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you Monday.
Free Palestine.
Free